Black Politics Today. An eye for what's at stake in global politics and your source for the social, economic, and political impact of public policy on the African American community. Your host, Kelly Michael Williams, is a political strategy veteran with an undefeated campaign record and the political experience that spans nearly 3 decades, from Mayor Willie Brown in California to President Barack Obama in our nation's capital. So get ready for a fresh and honest approach on the politics that affect you and your family the most. Now, your host, Kelly Michael Williams.
Welcome to the show, everyone. It is another night, Monday night. It's like Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw. Sometimes that's how I feel. I feel like, it's going to be one of them nights where we're just out here just, doing what we do because it needs to be done because, hey, if we don't do it, who's going to do it, right? So welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Kelly Michael Williams, and I want to thank you for joining us for another broadcast of What's at Stake right here on Black Politics Today. Man, what a week, or, half a week from last week to now, I mean. And then today, wow. Yeah, we'll get into what happened today, but so Black people, Black America, hit me up today. Hit me up. I think I got a couple of polls or something like that I may shoot out to you. But when we get into this, talk back to us. Talk back to us. Let us know what you're thinking. If you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking, if you're feeling the same way I'm feeling. But yeah, it's whoa. I mean, the good thing about it is this: we got the conviction of Minneapolis police officer Derrick Chauvin. I liked it when they started out saying Chauvin or Chauvin or something like that, mispronouncing his name. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Yeah, mispronounce his name, call him what you want to call him. I love the ending of the prosecutor that they call the Johnny Cochran of prosecutions, or the Johnny Cochran of Minneapolis. I can't think of his name right now, but he said it wasn't that George Floyd's heart was too big. It was that Derrick Chauvin's heart was too small. I wish he would have said too little, but it wouldn't have sounded right. Grammatically, he needed to say small. I would have said peanut. But it was good for a moment. It was good for a moment. Folks, celebrated the fact that he was convicted on all charges, and that was good because it gave the family some release, probably. I mean, we've been calling it justice, so it would have given the family some quote unquote justice, although they rightly asserted it as accountability, and it allowed them to not get the civil suit and not get the criminal side of things, but it allowed them to have both. And I think that is the first time in a long time in any case. I have not checked the civil suit of Chicago of Laquan McDonald, but I believe that the city settled with them as well. But clearly, it wasn't 27 million. I think the largest was 12 million, and that was as Wilmer, Dr. Leon, and I discussed last week. I think that was out of the Fruitvale case in California, But the fact that, they got both sides, it gave them some ability to exhale, rejoice. Now the question is, can they divide that 27 million up properly, where they're not at each other's throat like it's a funeral? And please, Jesus, please let it work out. The last thing we want to hear about is one of them getting arrested, or one of them ODing, or, something happening. Put some money away for the daughter, college fund, house, all that kind of stuff. Leave it there for her, put it in a trust, invest it wisely, but put that money away for her. So, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, she can be able to tap into that and be able to pull something out and live a good life. And, he's got like 7 or 8 brothers or something like that. Hopefully that's not going to be an issue, and they're not clamoring at that money and, trying to pull everyone out. Everyone can come out, but making sure that they do what's wise and what's prudent. So I'm prayerful for that, and looking for that. But the outbursts of joy, you saw it on the screen. You saw it in front of the courthouse, and what was happening, and people were like rejoicing and really excited about what was happening, and thankful. Biden came out and he talked about it as saying it was a new chapter in American history, and that true, not true, we don't know yet. But after 3 weeks, and you had a number of witnesses, and the jury deliberated for like 11 hours. We were collectively holding our breath for like 17 or 18 hours, because once the jury got the case and they didn't do anything on day 1, it was like, are they going to do something on day 2? And even I had kind of like walked away from it. And just as the announcement that they had reached the verdict came out, I kind of looked at my phone, and I was getting all these text messages and tweets and things of that nature, where I jumped up and was like, oh, I got to check it out. Let me see what's happening. And so I was like, oh, dear, I hope I didn't miss it. So fortunately, we were able to sit there collectively, hold our breath, and see what was happening. So when you heard that first guilty, and in my case, when I heard the first guilty, I knew it was going to be guilty on all the others. My concern was, after that first one, if they didn't find him guilty on the first one, were they going to go down to manslaughter? And I think I mentioned that to Wilmer last week. But President Biden made a statement, and I've been corrected. He had 5 siblings. So 27 divided by 5 plus the baby girl, his daughter. That's 6. So we'll see how that works out. But fortunately, hopefully, prayerfully, things will be done right, and everyone will be good. And they can put everything in perspective, and especially make sure his daughter is taken care of, and his daughter's mother who's taking care of her as well. But Biden came out and he made a statement and talked about it as a message. The verdict sent a message that justice can be achieved when police officers fail to serve people with respect and dignity. But can it? Did that verdict do that? Let's think about that. The president of the United States does a national address. I think probably Obama did one. I think in Trayvon Martin's case, I think he came out after the verdict, and I think he made a statement about that verdict. And so Joe Biden did one and said that this verdict is going to send a message that can, basically hold police accountable, and that we can achieve justice when officers don't do what they're supposed to do. And I'm asking a question, but can it? Or in this case, will it? Because if you think about it, literally within hours after that verdict. Some of us didn't get the notice or notification until later that evening, because the verdict came out at like 4:35. I think it was like 5:30, 5:45. By 8 p.m. that evening, Eastern time, we get notification that not one, not two, but 3 people now have been shot by police in less than a 24-hour period. 4 hours later, we get notification of Ma'Khia Bryant, the 16-year-old, being shot 4 times in the back in Columbus. That was like literally right after it happened. Then the next day, we get the notification of Andrew Brown Jr. in North Carolina. And the same day, Tennessee. Now, you haven't heard much about Tennessee, but there was a shooting in Tennessee of another unarmed Black man. I can't remember the details. I'm going to have to pull it up while we're talking. But in less than 24 hours, 3 people, a young Black female, 2 Black men, are shot and killed. So, yeah, the verdict was good. But to say that verdict is going to, as he said the verdict would send the message that justice can be achieved when police officers fail to serve people with respect and dignity. My contingency is hell no, it doesn't do that. It doesn't, it didn't, and it hasn't. Because if any of you saw the news today, let me get to that in a minute, because let me go back to the 1, 2, and the 3. Because if you look at it from the standpoint of Chauvin's verdict comes in at 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock, we're finding out about Ma'Khia Bryant. The very next day, we're finding out about Andrew Brown and the other gentleman for Tennessee. So only one of them had a weapon. The 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant, I don't know why here I am again, messing up people's names. Bryant had a weapon. She had a knife. She was apparently in confrontation with some other girls. And when the policemen rolled up, she was attacking one girl and then turned and sent her rage to the other girl and shot her. Now, you heard me say last week that I'm thinking that cop's going to get off, and probably rightly so, because of the fact that she had a weapon. She was actually plunging and lunging for the second victim, if you will, and could have easily stabbed her, luckily or unluckily, and being able to kill her. Then she'd be facing murder charges, which is better than facing death. I agree. But that split reaction of what had to happen, he could have used a taser. He could have jumped up and ran up on her. All those things could have happened. But given the aspect of the body camera footage and what we saw, depending on whatever video you have, and if they count it down or do something like that, it's probably going to be a justifiable homicide. Just get ready for that. Simply have a weapon, and she was in the process of getting ready to strike another woman, or girl in this case, child. So don't expect that there's going to be any different type of outcome in that's going to say he was not justified. She had a weapon. Had he gotten there sooner? Possibly. Split second is what they're going to say. Possibly. With that one, with the weapon, she had attacked one girl. You saw her fall. You don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen in that case. And so it's probably going to go his way, the officer's way. But the other two, Andrew Brown Jr. was in his car. Now, they were doing a search warrant, and then apparently a search warrant and an arrest warrant is what they said. Now, originally the call came out saying it was a search warrant, and that he went and got in his car and that they started yelling at him and shooting at his car, and then he drove away. And so what we found out today was just crazy. The other one, again, the young man in Tennessee, while we're on the show today, I'll pull that up and we'll discuss that one as well. But certainly, if you want to, if you got a comment or concern, give us a call at 516-590-0143, 516-590-0143. My guest tonight, who'll be joining us shortly, is no stranger to Black politics today. He's someone who I'm, very proud to call friend, as well as being a friend of BPT. He was one of our panelists in BPT's It's About Us summer series. He appeared during our summer series a few times. He is the retired NYPD 25-year veteran detective Mark Claxton. Mark, you've seen on MSNBC a number of times. He's usually on there in the evening around this time, which is why he's late tonight, most likely. But he's a 20-year veteran of New York PD. And if I'm not mistaken, was around when, and I'm going to mispronounce the name. I can't even pronounce the name. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Dubly. I can't pronounce the name, so I'm not going to mess it up. But somebody out there, give me his name, who was sodomized by police and brutalized, with a plunger or a stick or something like that, and really beat up badly. I believe he was around then. He was probably young on the force at that time, because I think that's been about 20, 25 years, if not more. But shoot us a comment. Give us a call at 516-590-0143 if you have any comments or questions. But today, I don't know if any of you saw the news today and watched it on your cell phone or watched CNN or MSNBC. I don't know if they had it on Fox, because I didn't tune into Fox today. I can only take so much of Fox, especially since they're still talking the big lie. But today you had the county attorney for North Carolina, Elizabeth City, North Carolina. I can't pronounce the county either. Part of me want to say Pocahontas, but that'd be rude and indignant to do that. But I can't think of the name of the county. They had a meeting with the family, and they had a meeting with the family attorneys. And so today, the county attorney decided that he was going to show the family video, or show the video to the family. The sheriff, by all accounts, apparently, and I put those in air quotes, was willing to show the family the video as well, and wanted to do so. Decided that they were going to show the family the video, but they were not going to allow Ben Crump, Bakari Sellers, Mr. Daniels, who are all outside of the North Carolina jurisdiction, to sit in on watching the video. In addition to that, they told the family they can come and see the video. However, they were not going to allow them any representation in seeing the video. They can only come by themselves. They were not going to allow their lawyers to come with them, or their attorneys to come with them. Now, any of you who have watched enough Law and Order, and some of you out here I know watch it religiously, but if any of you in there watch Law and Order, you know that a client can request an attorney at any time on the criminal side, and on the civil side, they can have any attorney they want represent them. There is no jurisdictional restriction or requirement for you to have a representative to represent you in an issue or case. Now, there are some issues when you're actually going to trial and for them to actually practice in the state. Typically, you go to court and the judge will allow you fill out a waiver, and the judge will allow you to be able to represent that client in that state. But the Constitution, because you can be barred in a state to quote unquote practice law and do what have you, but you can literally represent anyone you want to. As you know, Ben Crump does not live in all the states that he's representing people in. He doesn't live in Kentucky, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Arizona, California, but he has cases in all those states, or Minnesota. He has cases in all those states because as a civil rights attorney, he can go and practice anywhere he wants to. Now, if you're a family law attorney, if you're a criminal attorney, criminal attorneys literally also works like the civil rights attorney. But if you're like a family law or something that is state specific, then yeah, you have to be barred in that state, and you have to be able to, do that because the laws in that case are different. But when you're talking about civil rights and federal laws, you can practice anywhere you want to practice, and the people can request you. But in this case, the North Carolina county attorney was like, he told Bakari Sellers, Bakari from CNN, he told him to get the F out of his face. He wasn't going to be bullied, and that he would not be seeing the video, and he needed to take his butt out. And so it was like, what? And Bakari, when Bakari said it, he said it live on TV, and was like, yeah, I had to just walk away because I was feeling a little heated, and Bakari ain't no little dude either, but he said, yeah, I just walked away. And so as we say in South Carolina, bless him, Lord, because Bakari wanted to say something else. I know he felt like, as we say, slapping the taste out of his mouth and having to call his mama. But Bakari kind of walked away and didn't see it. So the young lady who did see the tape, she said they only showed 20 seconds of the tape. 20 seconds. They showed them 20 seconds of the tape, and they only showed it from the perspective of one body camera. Now, for those of you who did not know, there were 9 police officers there, from what, according to the family attorney, Ben Crump and all the others, there were 9 police officers there, 9 deputy sheriffs. You can see 8 of the deputy sheriffs on this one body camera, meaning, and by state law, all of those 8 have body cameras, and all of them are supposed to be on. But you see this, and then what you see from the testimony, or from the I say testimony, but from the narrative of the one attorney who was allowed in the room, she tells the press that they're running up to the vehicle shooting while Andrew Brown is sitting in the car with his hands on the steering wheel. They said, "Show me your hands," a la Adams. What's his name? What's the kid's name? Adam Toledo. Show me your hands. His hands are on the steering wheel. She says that he is not moving. He is not trying to depart at that time. He's not shuffling around or trying to grab anything or look for anything. He is sitting right there with his hands on the steering wheel. And at the point in time when they start the video, There are 5 police officers at his window yelling at him, and there are already shell casings on the ground. So they don't start this video at the beginning or when the police arrive. They start this video somewhere in between the commotion, and they start playing it. What the attorney says for the family is that the county attorney said he was only going to show them what was pertinent. And he was deciding what was pertinent. This is one of those cases, one of those shows where I really, really want to say what I really, really want to say, and I'm trying hard not to say it. This is one of those shows where I'm like Bakari Sellers. Bless him, Lord. Bless him. Bless him, Lord. Because I really want to have some choice words for they behinds right now, but I'm gonna say bless him, Lord. So they're running to his car, shooting at him while he's sitting in the car, and literally blowing up his car. Now, I have not heard definitively how many times he was hit. The number that I heard was 8. But so the point is that if 5 dudes is at his car, now I'm not going to question and get into the fact of get out of the car, do all this. But what I am going to tell you is law. What I am going to do is tell you precedent. And what the law says vis-a-vis the Supreme Court, and what precedent is vis-a-vis Supreme Court. But apparently they see these 5 officers and more coming shooting at him. While they're shooting at him, what Mr. Brown decides to do is to back up. So they had boxed him in, but what he did was back up to try to avoid being shot. And then, because remember, they had already started shooting at him when he was sitting in the car. So they're yelling, they're cussing at him, they calling him MFs and everything else. You know, they're hitting him hard. You know, they're going at him hard. But at this point, he's backing up and trying to get away and get out. And at that point, they just unload on him and really try to take him out, which eventually they do as he goes around them, hits a tree. And even after he hit the tree, they're still shooting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in my guest. I'm calling him Doctor tonight, Dr. Mark Claxton. He's a detective, but I'm going to call him Dr. Mark Claxton tonight and bring him in and have him this, man. What's going on, Doctor?
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
He's got to have a PhD in MPD, not NPD. So I'm you Doctor Detective, right? DNT. How's it going, man?
Everything it's going. It's going. You know,
right?
It's been busy, and I'm sorry for popping in a little later than scheduled, but I appreciate the invitation.
I figured once I saw the press conference, I was like, he hasn't hit me up telling me he ain't coming, so I just had to do a little bit. So I knew something was going on, and I was telling the viewers and listeners, I said to him, I said, he'll be here a little later, but let me go ahead and give you the breakdown of what I saw and what I was looking at. So I jumped right into the Brown. I started out with Chauvin, and I want to start there with you because I want to tip back to Chauvin and just ask you and get your perspective on it, because my position was that after Biden said what he said and made the announcement, I was sharing with the viewers that Biden was saying that this verdict was going to make a shift and it was going to create a narrative now where we can, as Americans, but most importantly, what he was going to say as African Americans, he just didn't say it, is that we can, this verdict will send a message that justice can be achieved when police officers fail to serve people with respect and dignity. And my question is, can it? I mean, does it? And in this case, will it? And so I want to start there with you. I mean, the verdict is in, but does it matter?
Not much if you look at the larger picture. I don't think justice, true justice, comprehensive and total justice is possible from a policing perspective if you maintain this current policing model.
Right.
And that means even if you occasionally are fortunate enough to get a verdict against a police officer, which is very rare, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised with the Chauvin verdict, guilty on all charges. But we know that that's not normal, that's not usual, and we have to know and realize that this system, the current structure, and the current system is very resilient and stubborn, and it will fight back. So, as you know, as it said, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Right.
Well, we should be buckling in now, and perhaps I think many people are aware that we're now in the reaction stage to the conviction of a police officer who operated under the color of law within the current police model.
Right, and I said in my intro that you had less than 24 hours later, you had 3 people die. One within 3 hours, Ma'Khia Bryant. The next one, Andrew Brown Jr., and then the third was the young brother in Tennessee, who I did not get all his information. I meant to pull it up, but I didn't remember pull up his information. So in less than 24 hours, you had 3 more shootings, and the only one that could be considered justified would be Ma'Khia Bryant, because she had a knife and she was getting ready to weld it to another young child. But even there's some questions.
Mm-hmm.
But my statement was that that's probably the one that's probably going to be the least scrutinized, if you will, by the department, because she had a weapon, and upon his arrival, he saw her, attacking one girl and then attacking another one. But was there enough time for him to react or respond with a taser or something else? Is going to be the question. And in his view, it's going to be like, no, because the other life was in danger. But how do you deal with that? Because I'm thinking this verdict, it should have an impact on the other 3 defendants. And I want you to comment on that. But will it? But then, within hours of the verdict, you have this killing.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think the Chauvin's verdict will have an impact on the other 3 police or former police defendants. I wouldn't be surprised if they look for the best plea deal they possibly can get, because what's happened is the prosecution successfully got a conviction. And so if you entered in as a former police officer thinking that you had some advantage in this particular case, if you had the typical police immunity, the implied police immunity,
right,
then you had to, after the verdict was just announced, you had to feel as if you were in big trouble, and that your level of liability just increased tenfold.
Yeah,
and you got to be looking for an out. But I'm glad that, and you mentioned the other cases involving the police and the police killing other people, other Black folk. 2 things. One is, a lot of times we get these cases back to back that get national coverage, and we tend to believe that there is a spike in these particular cases. But your viewers should know that there's a pretty consistent pattern of police killing Black folk throughout the course of the year. What has happened is we don't get the focus or attention, because one is it's pretty common,
right,
and 2, there are other areas that the media chooses to focus on. And I know, because I do some media coverage, so I know there are some cases that are really sensationalized and focused on, and it may give people the impression that there's some kind of spike, when in fact it's just the system doing what the system always does, usually out of your view. The second thing, I like the fact that you are able to, and I encourage everyone to do this, don't group these cases together. Examine them individually, because every case has its own set of factors and dynamics and possibilities, and it's wise to assess each one individually. Yes, they may indicate that there is a pattern and practice, which is something that the DOJ usually investigates in particular police agencies. They may indicate a pattern and practice, but as far as us assessing, and I'm talking about the broader community making an assessment on justified or not justified, or right or wrong, which is how we normally look at it. That was right, wrong, good or bad. It's wise to look at them individually and pay close attention to the details and specifics of it.
Right.
This past weekend, I had a conversation, several conversations with people regarding Michaela's killing. And my perspective is something they didn't expect from me, because normally there are some really cut and dry cases for me from a professional standpoint to analyze or to look at. And I said her case was separate, was different. Not that it was any less tragic.
Right.
It was just different.
Right.
There was less. It's one of the rare cases, and you oftentimes hear people say, "Well, police officers have to make these split-second life and death decisions." That's very rare, quite frankly, in policing. Really a split-second life or death decision. That's very rare in policing. It's not the norm, although on TV it's like the norm. But that particular instance was one of those split-second life or death, shoot, don't shoot situations, that a police officer had to face. And what made that particular case different is we're accustomed to the police officer relating his or her personal feelings.
Right.
I was in fear of my safety. I was in fear for my life, and I reacted. And then we spent our time analyzing whether they should have been fearful for their life or not, and debating that. This is one of the rare cases where the police officer is saying, and the videotape shows, he wasn't reacting based on a personal threat to his life.
Correct.
It was the life of another.
Right.
Who happens to be another young Black girl.
Right.
So he is one step removed, but forced into a life or death decision-making process like that. It is not, and some of the conversations are more tactical or not, but no, you can't, a taser doesn't evaporate a person to dissipate them. They don't get hit with a taser and disappear.
Right.
There is forward motion, there's physics, there is momentum involved, there is different people react to different things.
Right.
And if you examine the video, all the video available, you'll see that there was literally a second left on the clock as to whether or not that police officer should use a fatal force, or allow whatever Michaela's next action was going to be. And it appears it would have been plunging a knife into the other young lady. Correct. So that's what makes it different.
And I agree. And that's the point that I said. I said, yeah, I don't know about this one. This is close. It was split second. And because, the two things you have is, like I said, either she's looking at life in prison, and of course that would be much better than her being dead. But the other girl would be dead. And so it's one of the two variables that you have to look at. And I'm sure that the parents of the other girl are happy, that their child was not taken away from them. But you do have to look at it from the other side as well. So yeah, I try to separate them. I try to look at them independently and look at it. But again, like when you look at the Tennessee was the high school student.
In the bathroom?
Yeah, he was somewhere, and the cop came in. I guess it was the police officer or the service officer came in, and I couldn't pull up all the details on it because it took too long to load for me. But it was a high school student. I remember 17-year-old high school student got shot and killed.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it's interesting because there isn't a whole lot of information that's come out. Initially, the information was it was like they portrayed it as if it was an active shooter situation, and the SRO responded into the building and had them trapped in the bathroom, and there was an exchange of gunfire. Then subsequent reports came out and said, well, the other person in the bathroom, the young man, did not discharge a weapon at all. The ballistics has turned out it was a police officer who discharged his weapon, and then it's kind of like these gaps in information. So, and they've been fortunate enough to be kind of blocked by these other national stories going on, so people aren't focused
on them, right?
On that particular story. So that's why it's not as much clear information out there.
And let's hit on that, because I do want to try to take this in and this.
Brother, keep talking. I'm gonna grab my cup over here. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Grab your cup, man. Grab your cup.
I'm hearing you though. Keep talking.
All right. Let me do it like this and ask you from this perspective, because I wanna have the conversation so people understand exactly what's going on and not jump to conclusions. But there's always the issue that we have to deal with from the police department perspective as we look at the way they identified what happened to George Floyd initially. Yeah. They initially said George Floyd, their police responded to him, and therefore, once they responded to him, then you had the situation where he had a medical emergency and he later passed away. Yeah. Right. Then you have here with the Andrew Brown, that he tried to attack the police with his vehicle, and they had to shoot him down. And then, like what you're talking about, there was a gunfire, active shooter situation. Have police, PR, public relations not learned, not understood that there's body cam footage, there's eyewitnesses, there's cameras everywhere, cell phone, this, that, and the other, to literally wait for the truth, even when they don't get it from the officers, but wait and say it's an incident and put out there? Because I know we want it now, but I mean, if we can't get it now, at least give us everything you can give us, but give us the truth. Don't give us the lie, because we're going to find out later.
Right. Well, what these public information officers in the different agencies, big and small, realize is that the main thing for them is not necessarily giving you as much transparency and all the information as possible. The most important thing is controlling the narrative.
Right.
Even if the narrative is not really accurate, the fact that the department can in some way control the narrative and direct the questioning, if you will, and kind of direct the information that leaves the department, that's their objective.
Right.
They'll clean up and take your complaints later on about them being inaccurate. And the reason is because in each of the cases that you mentioned, you have no idea who the public information officer is. They're anonymous. So there's no risk of being personally identified and held accountable for misdirecting an investigation or misleading the public.
Yeah, and that's the problem there, is that they have there is no real accountability for them when they're
anonymous.
Right, they're anonymous. They just put it out there, and then the chief of police or whoever can always come back and say, oh yeah, well, this is actually what happened. We just wanted to make sure we got a statement out and blah, blah, blah. But that accountability, if you look at, if you had a chance and were able to see the press conference today of Andrew Brown.
Yes.
And that, I mean, that looked to me like that was just a sham, a fiasco. Bakari was pissed. Okay.
Yeah.
Bakari was pissed. And to have the county attorney tell him, get the F out of my face, I'm not going to be bullied by you, right? Yep. You ain't going to see basically Dookie. Right. Yep. I ain't showing you nothing, and get out of here.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, he is not even the man who's in charge of prosecuting the case.
Yeah. Well, see, and I hope Bakari realizes this. I just came off of another show, and I made this point because I wanted it to be out there so they would be aware. They were in the middle of a good cop, bad cop play acting.
Yeah.
Because
the sheriff is playing a good cop.
Right. And you heard Bakari say it.
Yeah.
That the sheriff really wanted to, he wanted the family to get it. Well, no. That was prearranged. Their positions were prearranged. Everyone's position was prearranged and spoken about. They were playing classic good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
And the attorneys have to be made aware of that. No, the sheriff doesn't want you to have because if he wanted you to have it or view it, you would have viewed it the other day.
Exactly. You wouldn't have to wait for him.
Right. He's playing kick the can. First is the Bureau, the BSI, State Bureau of Investigations. Right. We don't want to interfere with their investigation. So we'd rather wait, and maybe as early as Monday. That was the initial thing he said, maybe as early as Monday. And then he had this black deputy chief say, well, while you're waiting on it, this guy was really a bad guy. He had prior arrests and prior incidents of, so they were kind of laying the seeds down. I was checking it the other day, and I was like, man, and today I said, oh, this is classic good cop, bad cop. And I hope Bakari realizes it. I'm going to reach out to Bakari just to reiterate the points that I made on the air.
Yeah.
But it's classic. The sheriff, so far from what I've seen, I'm trusting no one in regards to it.
No.
There's been no significant transparency, no honesty. Mm-mm. They've tried to besmirch it and disrespect the reputation of the dead person. They have significant, and you got 75-person department. 7 guys are on administrative leave. Right. 3 resigned. That they said, oh well, they resigned, but it's not related to the shooting. So
well, why all of a sudden you got 3 on the same day resigning? And
it's strange, right? On the heels of 7 guys being placed on leave.
Right. They got pensions. They got everything else. Right. They just go resign. I'm going to leave. And the bad thing about that, Mark, is that because they resign now, unless they get charged and something happens, they're going to go to another department.
Right. Sure.
They're going to skip to the loop over to another department, and that's where they're going to be. And one of the things that I was listening to and thinking about was that you have the whole thing, like you said, good cop, bad cop. And I was sitting there watching it, and I was going to ask you, I said, they tried out the brother. And I don't know if he was the the chief deputy or who he was.
That's exactly who he is.
Right.
Chief deputy.
Right. And I said, here we go. Because I saw the same thing you saw. And I said, oh, now they put him in charge of bad-mouthing the brother.
That's right.
They're gonna bring us out to badmouth us to justify you because it was a bad shoot, but you want to put our face on it and our mouth on it so that when it's come back, you're gonna say, oh, but the chief deputy, he wouldn't even tell you. He knew this guy was a bad guy.
Right.
He wouldn't even tell you.
Right.
But isn't it the way they treated Bakari and Ben and everyone else? I likened it to the what my man said was Dred Scott.
Mm.
And if anyone listening out there, go back and read the Dred Scott decision, put it up, maybe it's on YouTube, because the Supreme Court at that time said that there is no law. I believe I'm gonna look it up, make sure I'm quoting it correctly. But there's no decision where the court said that Black folks have the right that the court is bound to respect.
Right. That's
exactly how they treated those attorneys in that room. They were like, you down here in Packawaunee County.
Right.
Boy, let me tell you something. You ain't coming down here to bully me. I ain't gonna listen to you because quite frankly, I don't have to listen to you. Yep. You ain't nobody but a black boy that I don't care about because the Supreme Court told me.
Yeah.
You ain't got no power over me or what you say down here. So because you're not licensed here, you get your behind on out of here and go on and go. And the irony to that too was the only person licensed in there was a female, a black female. So you know how they was gonna treat her.
Yeah.
Now she's in there, and what do? They give you 20 seconds that they claimed was pertinent in that 20 seconds.
Right.
How do we overcome stuff like that? Because the reality of it is that we're bound and we can't do anything except go to the media, go to court, and then try to force their hands that way. But they're the county. They're in charge of everybody, and the judge and everybody else is probably in their pocket. So you got to take it all to the state Supreme Court.
Yeah. It's, I was saying, I likened it, it's the land that time forgot. It's the place with no situational awareness. It's individuals who are living in the 19th century.
Right.
Who maybe, I don't know if they know there was a Chauvin trial just recently. I don't know. It's as if they are operating with an old playbook that's no longer relevant here. But they at least they know one thing: they control the field.
Right.
And so the disrespect shown to the attorneys, and the stall tactics was just a furtherance of the bad cop. You had to play real bad cop to make that sheriff look as sweet as gold.
Right.
To make you more comfortable with dealing with the sheriff than dealing with, and that guy was he was the county attorney. He was the attorney for the county. He's not the district attorney. No. He's not
attorney general. He's not anybody.
Right. He's the guy that reviews contracts and ethical stuff along with the county. That's who he is. He
does no criminal prosecutions. He's not in charge of prosecuting. He's not in charge of any of that. And he's going to tell them, "Get out of here, boy. You can't see nothing." Yep. I mean, and what you're saying is absolutely true, because you have to think that you just saw this trial going on. You just saw the protests that happened. You had protests in Elizabeth City that was peaceful. The mayor and everybody came out, said it was peaceful, it was great. But why would you allow yourself to be caught in clear violation of not only your order, because there's got to be policy of shooting at a moving vehicle. Unless there is danger of immediate danger. There's federal precedent. There's federal precedent from the Supreme Court saying you don't shoot at moving vehicles going away. By the fact that I didn't obey your command, and by the fact that I'm leaving, even if I'm a felon, does not give you justification to shoot at me or kill me or shoot me. So you got 3 violations right there. Not only your own, which is probably the state and the county, but then you got federal violations. Right? Yeah. So how do you sit there and allow yourself to get caught up in that and not come out transparently and say, okay, here's what happened. We effed up.
Right.
That's how you get ahead of the narrative. Yep. Then you can go back and clean it up. Right? Yep. But at least when you come out and say, yeah, we effed up, then now if you slow walk it, you slow walking to put the pieces together. So now you can come back and fire the cops you got to fire, let them resign, let them, move on and everything else. But you keep your tact in your department and at least some semblance of saline, cleanness or clearness that will allow you to come back another day. But when you don't do that, you have totally destroyed your department.
Yeah, and what they've done is they have thrown down the gauntlet. They don't realize, like I said, they're not situationally aware. They don't realize at this moment there are hundreds of people making their way to Elizabeth City.
Exactly.
Because they don't understand. I don't know if they've been watching around the nation how this goes. But once you challenge the movement, the movement comes to meet you.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So I mean, it was absolutely a way to avoid that and to show openness and integrity and honesty. But the system doesn't allow for that.
Yeah.
And that's why there's this discussion about, some people call it the defunding the police or whatever. It's about reimagining police, reallocating resources, and changing from this current police model to a public safety model. More comprehensive, more holistic. It removes police out of what should be non-enforcement matters, etc. Because a lot of this stuff comes from non-enforcement matters. Not this case, but a lot of it does come from it. But what they've done is they have just invited every organization around the nation who responds to these events to come and demonstrate in Elizabeth City, and they'll be changing their tunes pretty soon.
It's going to be clear because they're going to have to deal. They're going to have to deal with it, and then you're going to have the legislature coming out trying to certainly pass one of these no protest, no riot laws like in Florida.
Right.
I'm about to send that sheriff and the governor. I'm going to pull up that same picture he put up as being a riot. As you saw, it was black folks walking around with their hands up, right? That was a riot, right? But this is what we like. These people at Disney, he had one little black little girl there, and then the rest of the people in there. This is what we like to see. Now, I'm going to take that picture, and I'm going to say, no, this isn't a riot. This is a peaceful protest. And then I'm going to get January 6th and tweet to the behind and say, now, this is a riot.
That's a riot.
Right.
That's right.
When you have people being killed, dying, and everything else, this is a riot. We want to protect our property. And looking at that too, Mark, this idea that they want to stop you from being able to protest, stop you from being able to organize. They want to infringe on your First Amendment. They want to take your vote, your 14th Amendment, and they want to essentially do what this county is doing and saying, boy, girl, you don't have no rights up in here. You're black, and we don't care, because what we're going to do is we're going to keep everything wholesome and happy around here the way we see it as being wholesome and happy. That's where we're going to. That's what's leading to this, and all these states and all these laws are coming out. How do you think America is going to respond to that? And most importantly, Black America?
Black America is going to respond by increasing the pressure, I believe. I think so many people who would love to sit back and kind of remove themselves from a lot of the tension in the nation, and people who normally would do that are now feeling kind of pushed to a point where they have to do something. Part of that something came out during the last national election, because for those who really ain't in marching or demonstrating, etc., if they felt they had to do something, that was their increased activity, is making sure they made their way out to the ballot.
Right.
That's, in my opinion. I think moving forward and in between election cycles, you will find people more active on the streets, making demands. If it's a matter of letter writing campaigns, that's one thing. But I think you're going to see more in the street, physical, direct confrontation than in any period in the past few years. That's what I think is going to be the reaction, because people are at the point where they're just going to blow over.
Right, it's going to blow up. It's going to blow up. And I tell folks on my show, look, go get your guns, get it registered, go pack, get you a couple of rifles, get you a couple of handguns, make sure you got a clean record, get your permits, put it on your body, because it's coming. And some of my listeners like, why are you telling people to get their guns? Because you're going to need to get one. I just went and got mine. I'm going to get a couple more, right? I made sure my daughter knows how to shoot. My son knows how to shoot, all of that, because that's what is going to come down. If they want to say that the Second Amendment is the amendment that says that we can all bear arms, which it does not.
Right.
But if that's what they want to say, and we can have hunting guns, that shoot 100 rounds because we don't know how to shoot a deer.
Right.
And that's what we're going to do. Now, fortunately, I live in DC. I can't have 100 rounds. But I can have a whole lot of 10-round clips, and I'm just going to pack my bag up 10 times, right? And have me 100 rounds. Okay.
Well, what's interesting is, I of course, with my law enforcement background, et cetera, I've been a gun owner for a long time, whatnot. And I've always respected lawful gun laws, et cetera. And I've always been that kind of a guy. But I've always been understanding of, and most cops are understanding of, requiring additional steps in order to obtain firearms. And no, cops are not for open carry and all these kind of NRA push kind of things. Cops just ain't for that. You get the impression they are, but no, they aren't, because it just makes their job that much more difficult. If everybody's walking around.
Yeah, because you guys don't have the assault weapons readily available to you there on the step. These guys do, right? And armor-piercing bullets, you guys don't have those available to you, right? And they don't understand that. Crazy. So what's going to happen if this George Floyd Act does not pass, or if it gets watered down like Tim Scott's trying to do? and and you have cops still having the immunity, quote unquote, but the immunity transfers to the cop, stays with the cop, but it takes it off the department. Is that going to matter? Because what you're going to have is the cops are still going to be have immunity, and then you're going to be suing the department, which is what they do now anyway.
Yeah, and that's the unspoken reality about qualified immunity. I'm supportive of the elimination of qualified immunity for police officers, and qualified immunity applies to civil cases, not criminal. So it's not criminal immunity; it's a civil immunity. I'm for elimination of it. But the reality of it is, normally people sue the individual police officer and the department.
Right.
You know, that's usually how the affidavits are written.
Right.
You know, Joe officer blow this, Joe blow that, and the department of such and such is how they normally sue. And what tends to happen is the department is indemnified by the local or state jurisdiction, and that carries over anyway to the officer who's named on the suit. But I think it's important to eliminate qualified immunity, because the most substantive reforms that you will have are reforms that expose police officers to increased liability.
Exactly.
Whatever you could do to increase their personal liability, you get their attention. Because police don't respond. They respond to two things. You either incentivize or you penalize. Mm-hmm. And if you're talking about hitting the cat's pocket personally,
his pension,
you get his attention. You get his attention. Right. You get his attention, and you change behavior, which should be the objective of a lot of the reform movement.
And that's what they have to do, because I look at it and now and we talked about the deputy chief or deputy sheriff as a Black officer. How do you think Black cops today are doing during this time? How do they stand with their quote unquote department, if you will, but have to deal with so much shooting of Black men out there, and still try to maintain the relationship with the community, and still try to maintain their code of law enforcement code and creed to do what they have to do? How do you think Black officers right now are feeling in America?
I think the way that they've always felt, we've always felt, but what's weird is, and I think people assume one or two things. They assume that everybody goes into the police department believes they're no longer the race that they came into. Like, you're no longer Black, you become blue.
Right.
Which is, who knows? I don't know, Smurfs. That's a crazy thing. That didn't exist during my time at the job. I wouldn't entertain that conversation. But I think people think, cops go in and they all become blue. The only thing that matters is blue, blue, blue.
Right.
That's not true. And the opposite is not true either, that cops go in and maintain their integrity and their cultural integrity, that understand the dynamics of their race. A lot of guys go into the department and become subsumed by the police culture and the toxicity of the police culture.
Yeah.
So you have different types of people, and I worked with all different types of folk. Guys who understood quite clearly what their space was, who maintained their integrity and understood the dynamics of it, and made sure that those around them respected them. Like me, I mean, I didn't have issues. People may think I had issues in the department or whatnot. I mean, not personal issues, because people know who they could do certain things to. So that's just the way it goes.
Right.
So that's still a dynamic in the departments now.
Yeah.
You have individuals who make it clear about what their priorities are, who believe in their own personal integrity and maintaining professional integrity and operate that way. But they're not blind to the realities of what's going on. And hopefully, if it's like when I was active in the department, there are actual conversations that go on with your coworkers that are real, frank, and honest and straightforward, just so everybody knows where everybody's line is, and makes it clear how to proceed. But the evolution or the revolution in policing, especially as it pertains to the role that race plays in policing, that evolution or revolution will not be led by the black or
Right.
Latino police officers. Unfortunately, we just won't be, because the power structures are not as diverse as they need to be in order to affect that kind of change.
Well, just before we go, I want to. I'm gonna take this caller who is on the line, and then we'll go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
Hello.
Hello, caller.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Barely. Speak up a little bit. Tell me what's your name and where you calling from.
I didn't hear that question. Your phone went out.
I was saying, just tell us where you're calling from and what's your name.
Tell us where you're calling from and what's your name.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but
go ahead.
My name is Dr. Alami Muhammad, and I understand where the brother is coming from too, as well. But it's a lot of people on the force that I wouldn't even give a attention to. Like sometimes how even on our jobs, those that are negative, we don't give them your time of their attention to, right? But at the same time, you see, you keep an eye and you continue to be observant. You see, and that's how it is, though. Even where I'm at, is that this thing that's happening is no longer becoming a black or white thing. It's becoming an issue with a spirit being good or evil.
All right. Thanks, caller. I appreciate that.
And the last point the caller made is something that people need to consider too, whether or not what we are dealing with it goes deeper than racism or intolerance or bigotry or prejudice. Whether or not it speaks, it's more spiritual. It's more deeply rooted. It's less surface than we attribute it.
Right.
And I suspect that it is, and that's why it takes much more of an innovative type of process to rid the system, and I'm talking about the criminal justice system,
right,
of much of what makes it imbalanced for the Black and brown communities. We have to recognize that it's not just because you could have, if you have no malice in your heart, but you still have, a bigoted mind or a racist mind, there's less damage. But if you carry into this profession or the system a certain anger, frustration, or violence or ill will, that's when we have the complications and problems.
You're right, and let's remember that when all these systems were set up, they were set up under the guise of Christianity and under this idea that God made us, and they would always refer back to the slaves obey your master scripture, right? Because we were slaves, so we had to obey our masters, right? And they would always couch everything under this hierarchy of God and this Christianity that they live under. That's why it's so disturbing to have quote unquote Christians in the legislature and even in the evangelicals out there saying that all this stuff is all great and everything is wonderful. I mean, Brett Favre coming out saying, well, he don't understand why Chauvin was convicted. And I'm saying to myself, I'm about to call and send a text to Jerry Rice and say, Jerry, you gonna make any more commercials with this fool? Because everybody on the football field, but when you and my man from New Orleans come out and say some of this dumb mess, right, and that just is counterintuitive to everything that we think, antithetical to everything we think of who you are, But then let something like this happen, then we find out who you really are. And it's like,
Yep.
wait a minute. But that's how they've always been able to play the game. They've always been, you on the team, you helping me win. I'm the star. I can keep doing it. But then when I get politically, I can say what I want to, and I'm shielded and I'm covered. What's at stake for us, Mark? What's at stake for us, man?
It's all at stake. Our very lives are at stake. We can't continue in this current system because it jeopardizes the life of our family members, our loved ones, our friends. The current system is broken. So it really has to be restructured in a way that respects the sanctity of human life, all human life.
Right.
And in particular pays a special attention and focus to just how tenuous Black life is, and it's all on the line. I think it's that serious for us to do things.
And I meant to show you this video of the white dude in Minnesota in the truck. I know you saw it. Where he had four police officers around him, one on top of the truck and everything. And he pulls out. Now, if that was us, we already know. We already know.
Yeah.
We would have ended up dead, shot up, and then they used the vehicle. He used the vehicle to take. I mean, the dude took his little hammer to break the window with and hit him with it. Yeah. Okay, took it from him, hit him, and he still got away. And I didn't ask you this. The census came out. The early part of the census came out, and we lose some seats in blue states, and then they gain some seats in some of the red states. Yeah. How do you see 2022 playing out?
Well, with this census issue, because they lost a seat in New York.
Yeah,
I was kind of blown away by that. So it's the normal. 83
more people responded to the census.
Crazy.
You wouldn't have lost the seat.
Absolutely crazy.
This is what I was preaching last year when we were doing the summer series about the census and voting. People don't understand one little vote per precinct changes the trajectory of where you're going and where you're heading. And when you have 89 votes or 89 people responding to the census in New York, you lose a seat, which now figures out how you carve this state up. But in the red states, they're gaining seats.
It's crazy.
So you know how they're going to carve it out. Now, I look at Texas 2, Florida 1, Carolina 1, Montana 1, and you got Oregon and Colorado. So you got 2, 3, 4, 5 seats. They're going to come up on the red side. There's only a 9-seat majority for Democrats.
Right.
So you already got 6 seats right there that you know they're going to turn red.
And then you add into it, the new laws, the new set of laws, relating to early voting and all this type of stuff.
Right. And the redistricting. So you add in the reapportionment of the additional seats.
Yep.
Right? And then you add in the redistricting, and then in the blue states that lose the seats, California, New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and then Ohio and West Virginia.
Crazy.
I mean, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it is.
And this is where I tell Black folks and especially Black Democrats to understand it. Look, folks, you people need to understand why you need to get to the polls. And you said it earlier, it's all circle around and it all comes back to 100. Man, I want to appreciate you, Doctor.
Thank you
so much, my brother. I look forward to having you again politically and talking to you. I got to call you personally myself a few times because we need to talk. But my son's up there in New York, so he's at NYU. So I'm going to call you to take care of him for me. Okay?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Take care of him. But take us out.
Tell him look out for my man Eric Adams running for mayor up there in New York also. Don't forget that.
Right. I sent him the money. I got a tweet from him. Right? So I'm like, okay, he must be sending this to BPT because he don't know me. I'm gonna send him some money, right? But I sent him some money. I said, no, Black politicians sent their brother some money because I hear he's right there. Yang is doing his thing, but everybody's like questioning what's going on with him? What's going on with him? So Eric, I got Eric some money, but absolutely. Take us out of here, man. What do we have to look forward to? What do you have going on in your life? What's going on with Mark? How can we support you?
Just I want to be a blessing to as many people as humanly possible. I mean, I'm gonna keep on doing the media analysis and offering my perspective and some advice on occasion, etc. So I'm just gonna continue to do that, my media work and working real hard, really to be as relevant as possible and to stay in the struggle, to stay committed to fighting for our people and just raising those issues that need to be raised.
Well, I want you to do some writing. I want you to do some writing for Black Politics Today magazine.
We spoke about that before too, and I write. So I gotta send you some. I gotta send you an op-ed or something like that. I want to see if you're interested in it.
I'm interested in whatever you got, man. Send it to me.
All right.
We'll put it on. We'll put it on the website. But most importantly, I want it in the magazine.
Oh, excellent, good.
So we'll talk. I'll send you a couple of issues. I email you a couple of issues. It's all digital, and we print every summer for the Black Caucus. So I want to get here for the Black Caucus. In fact, you might be my awardee this year. I think I might do that. All right.
All right. And my Twitter is @Black Alliance #1. @Black Alliance #1.
That's it. Let me put it. I put it up there. I didn't have it, so let me make sure I put it up there. Everybody, I want you to help out and get with Mark and let him know that you are there. Follow him right now on Twitter. Hook him up and put him. Increase his following, increase everything in @Black Alliance #1. Is that correct?
That's it.
Mark Claxton right there. Black America, I talk to you guys every week. If it's social, economic, if it's political, it's Black Politics Today. But you have to understand what's at stake for you and your family. Do not allow everything to wrap around materialistic things and materialistic gain. We have to recognize that our very soul and life, like Mark said, is on the line. And many of you know that I get very emotional about stuff for our people. And I really want to cuss, like I told you earlier. I can do it without cussing, but cussing just lets me emphasize how bad and what I'm feeling right now. Okay,
let it go, brother.
You know, but it's like, come on, people, we have to come together. Mark is saying he wants to make a part of the struggle. He wants to make sure he's included in the struggle. That's what we all need to do. Stop sitting on the sideline and let's get in the game. Get in the fight, because if we don't fight now, we're going to end up being buried or fighting later, and it's going to be too late. Because if these laws keep passing and they keep shooting us in the back or in the head like they did Andrew Brown, Andrew Brown, then that's how we're going to end up. Now, I don't commend the running or doing anything like that, but the law doesn't say that he's got to stay there. It doesn't, I mean. Mm-hmm. But the law doesn't say that because he ran, you can shoot him in the back.
Nope.
The law doesn't say because he ran in his car, even though he's a felon, you can shoot him. In fact, the law says that you cannot do that.
That's right.
It specifically says that, and it's a Supreme Court ruling. But like they said with Dred Scott, they believe that nothing that we say or do is relevant to them or anything that or anything that they do. We need to let them know it's very relevant, and we need to make sure we take it to them. As they used to say, I think it was Beretta. All right, take that to the bank. Right.
Showing your age now.
Right,
Watch out.
I watched it on YouTube.
Keep your eye on the sparrow.
Thank you, Dr. Mark, man. I appreciate you, Mark. Mark Claxton, retired New York PD detective, 23, 25 years on the force, right? But that's my brother, and we appreciate it. Look for his work right there in Black Politics Today online, as well as Black Politics Today magazine. Until next week, if it's social, economic, or political, it's Black Politics Today. Good night, everybody. Peace, my brother.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Black Politics Today.